Good morning. Coleen Cusack, Community Advocate, resident of District 3. Next slide, please. Everyone should know that on February 23rd, 2022, the city enacted a declaration that gave it the right to exempt from all buildings it declares a shelter all health, safety, and habitability standards. That's the reason that owners with toxic properties are contacting the city to find a profitable way to use their buildings at the expense of people. Next slide, please. I'm here with the good news that if you're announcing that you have $30 million in operating expenses over 35 years, that's fantastic, because we can house people with that. So using the money that was put out there, it would be a per person cost of $27.01 under the mayor's plan. And if we house them, it would only cost $24.45 per person. I'm going to go and break this down more. Next slide, please. That works out to $32 million to temporary shelter under the mayor's plan, $29,340,000 for Housing First in a single room. Housing First is not just the model, but the mandate in California. Next slide, please. Now, the 1,000 person shelter, according to the preliminary budget, will cost more than it would cost to house people at current market rates following the Housing First model, which includes intensive case management. Joanne Stanley of Housing for the Homeless has put together the cost comparison. This is a worst case scenario, most expensive version of this plan, and this would provide each person with their own apartment. The mayor's shelter plan is projected to cost $32,414,285 a year for single occupancy scattered site housing would cost $29,340,000 a year, including intensive case management and administrative costs. If everyone was given their own apartment, it might take up to 6 months to build a portfolio of 1,000 rentals for $1,800 a month, far less time than the time it will take to remodel the proposed warehouse. If you include some shared housing, it can easily be accomplished with the current housing stock that is available today. If you offer a mixture of housing options, single and shared, the city could save an additional $8 million a year, and 1,000 more people could be housed, as opposed to giving them a cot in a mass congregate shelter. Next slide, please. Next slide. $24,540,000 to house 1,000 people in their own home versus $32,414,285 for a cot. Next slide. Most of our unhoused neighbors have income, and the standard practice is for them to pay 30% of their income towards their living expenses. They pay nothing when they're in a shelter. The average income for the people who we work with is about $1,200 per month, not including EBT. If only half of people housed had an income of $1,000 a month, that would leave $1.8 million slush fund per year to cover any additional expenses. Next slide. In light of these facts, it's hard to argue a case for the shelter. Pursuing shelter over housing would be cruel and a breach of fiduciary duty. Moreover, this mayor and Councilmember Whitburn have not demonstrated they have the capacity to treat the city shelters with dignity. The safe tent camp is anything but safe. Next slide. Reminder, this city declared housing to be a human right. Next slide. Safe tent camp has uninsulated ice fishing tents in a known flood zone. Next slide. This is one of their meals. This is everything they've got for that particular day. Next slide. This is everything they got on that particular day. Next slide. This is everything they got on this particular day. They're slowly starving them with 900 calories a day. Next slide, please. And they're poorly cooking the meal, causing gastrointestinal illnesses and outbreaks. Next slide, please. They only have 8-seater shuttle to get them off to supplement any income. To do that for everybody would take 34 hours in the day. Next slide. Can you go to the last slide, please? So I'm going to remind you that your decision today, it would be much more competent and less corrupt to house people and not shelter them.
Thank you for that concluding remark. If I can ask the following individuals to please come forward to the front row. Paul Kruger, Julie Porter, Rachel Hayes, Tammy Ratliff, Paul Lima, and John Brady.